March 6, 1944. 9:19 hours. 23,000 feet over Germany. Staff Sergeant Michael Joseph Donovan, 23 years old, from South Boston, Massachusetts, sat in the tail gun position of B-17G flying Fortress 42 to 31,367, nicknamed Hell's Fury, and watched 12 Messerschmitt Bf-109s form up for attack 2,000 yards astern. The temperature outside was minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside his electrically heated suit, Donovan could see his breath crystallizing on the oxygen mask. His hands, covered in sheepskin-lined gloves, rested on the twin .50 caliber Browning M2 machine guns that constitute the only defense against fighters attacking from directly behind. Behind him, quite literally behind him, separated only by a curved plexiglass turret and thin aluminum skin, was empty sky, German-controlled airspace, and 12 aircraft specifically designed to destroy bombers like Hell's Fury. In front of him, though he couldn't see them from his isolated position in the tail, were 8 other crew members whose survival depended on his ability to shoot down fighters before they could shoot down the bomber. The statistics that defined the profession were brutally simple. Between December 1941 and March 1944, tail gunners in the 8th Air Force had sustained a 38% casualty rate, the highest of any crew position on B-17 bombers. Of every 100 tail gunners who began their 25 mission combat tour, 38 would be killed, wounded, or missing before completion. The mathematics of aerial combat explained why. A, B, 17 cruised at approximately 180 miles per hour. A Bf-109 attacked at speeds exceeding 400 miles per hour. The closing speed between bomber and fighter was roughly 220 miles per hour, 366 feet per second. At 2,000 yards, Donovan had approximately 16 seconds before the German fighters reached effective firing range. At 1,000 yards, effective range for most aerial gunnery, he had 8 seconds. At 500 yards, where most tail gunners opened fire, he had 4 seconds. For seconds to identify the target, traverse the guns, acquire proper lead angle, fire accurate bursts, and destroy an aircraft moving at 400 miles per hour while his own aircraft vibrated from engine noise, prop wash, and turbulence. Most tail gunners waited until fighters entered this 500-yard envelope before opening fire. Standard doctrine, taught at every gunnery school in the United States, emphasized ammunition conservation, defensive fire discipline, and shooting only when certain of hits. Staff Sergeant Michael Donovan had different ideas. Through his gun sight, he watched the 12 Bf-109s complete their formation. They were arranging themselves in what Luftwaffe Doctrine called a swarm, for aircraft arranged in 2 pairs, with 8 more fighters following in supporting positions. The lead element would attack first, drawing defensive fire. The trailing elements would exploit the gunner's focus on the primary threat, attacking while attention was divided. Standard German fighter tactics. Proven effective through 3 years of combat, responsible for hundreds of bomber losses. Donovan had studied these tactics extensively. He had read, captured Luftwaffe tactical manuals translated by intelligence officers. He had interviewed bomber crews who survived fighter attacks. He had analyzed gun camera footage from successful defensive engagements. He understood exactly what the German formation was preparing to do, and he was about to do something that violated every principle of defensive gunnery doctrine taught by the United States Army Air Forces. He was going to attack first. At 9 hours, 19 minutes and 47 seconds hours, 13 seconds before the German fighters completed their attack formation, Donovan opened fire. Maximum range, 2,000 yards. Low probability of hits. Complete violation of ammunition conservation doctrine. The twin .50 caliber Browning guns hammered at 800 rounds per minute combined rate of fire. Tracers, 1 round and 5 loaded with phosphorus compound that burned white hot, arced across empty sky. Most rounds missed by hundreds of feet. The German fighters were too far away, moving too fast, at angles that made accurate gunnery nearly impossible. But accuracy wasn't the objective. The effect was immediate. The German formation scattered. The lead swarm broke right. The trailing elements hesitated. The coordinated attack pattern, carefully planned, meticulously executed, disintegrated before a single German fighter reached firing position. In the cockpit, Captain James Whitmore, 31 years old, from Illinois, keyed the intercom. "Donovan, cease fire. You're wasting ammunition." "Negative, sir," Donovan replied, his voice steady despite the noise and vibration. "Watch what happens next." The German fighters regrouped at 1,500 yards, outside what they considered effective defensive gun range, but still within formation visibility. They approached cautiously now, not with the aggressive diving attack pattern they had initially planned. The initiative had shifted. What neither Captain Whitmore nor the German fighter pilots fully understood, yet, was that they had just witnessed the opening moment of a tactical revolution that would change aerial combat doctrine for every major air force in World War II. But first, Staff Sergeant Michael Donovan had 11 more fighters to shoot down in the next 4 minutes. Michael Joseph Donovan grew up on West Broadway in South Boston, where survival meant understanding violence before it arrived. His father, Patrick Donovan, 47 years old, worked the docks at Boston Harbor, brutal labor that paid 35 cents an hour when work was available, which was roughly 3 days per week during the Depression. His mother, Catherine, 44 years old, cleaned houses in Beacon Hill for wealthy families who paid her $2 per day and wouldn't let her use the front entrance. Michael had 2 older brothers, Patrick Jr., who worked construction when he could find it, and James, who boxed in Golden Gloves competitions at 147 pounds and brought home $15 when he won, which was most of the time. The Donovan household operated on principles that Michael absorbed before he understood the words to articulate them. You fought for what you needed. You hit first when trouble came looking. You never waited for someone else to solve your problems. By age 17, Michael Donovan had been in 32 documented fights. Documented, meaning witnessed by multiple people who could confirm what happened. He won 28. The 4 he lost occurred because he had started too late, allowed the other person to throw the first punch, tried to defend instead of attack. The lesson crystallized. Defensive posture gets you hurt. Offensive action keeps you breathing. When Pearl Harbor was attacked on December 7, 1941, Donovan was 19 years old, working at a sheet metal factory in Dorchester for 55 cents an hour. He enlisted in the Army Air Forces on December 8th. The recruiting sergeant looked at his application. Height 5 feet 9 inches, weight 162 pounds, education through 10th grade, occupation sheet metal worker. We can put you in ground crew, the sergeant said. Sheet metal skills transferred directly to aircraft maintenance. Good steady work, stateside mostly. I want to be a gunner, Donovan replied. Gunnery school is competitive. We got guys with college degrees applying. I don't need college to shoot. The sergeant studied him for 3 seconds, then stamped the application approved. Donovan reported to Flexible Gunnery School at Tyndall Field in February 1942. The 6-week course trained aerial gunners in aircraft recognition, gun maintenance, deflection shooting, and defensive tactics. The school's philosophy, established by officers who had studied British aerial combat experience, emphasized ammunition conservation and defensive fire discipline. Student gunners learned to wait for targets to enter optimal firing range, to fire short control bursts, to prioritize survival over aggressive engagement. Donovan's instructors recognized immediately that he didn't fit the profile. Lieutenant Robert Morrison, 28 years old from Ohio, pulled Donovan aside after the 3rd week. You're firing at targets outside effective range. You're wasting ammunition. You're exposing yourself to return fire unnecessarily. I'm destroying more targets than anyone in the class, Donovan replied. You're 3rd in accuracy scores. I'm 1st in targets destroyed per training sortie. Isn't that what matters? Morrison consulted his records. Donovan was correct. He averaged 4.2 target destructions per flight, compared to class average of 2.7. Your approach is reckless, Morrison said carefully. In combat, aggressive gunners draw fire. They expose the aircraft. They dive first. Donovan's response became legend among gunnery instructors at Tyndall Field. Dead gunners don't shoot back. Live ones do. If I'm shooting, I'm alive. If I'm waiting, I'm giving someone else a chance to kill me first. Morrison had no effective counter-argument. Donovan graduated 3rd in his class, not because of accuracy, but because of speed. He could acquire targets faster than anyone the school had trained. His final evaluation included a note that would follow him throughout his military service. Excellent reflexes and target acquisition. Tends toward aggressive tactics that violate defensive doctrine. Recommend assignment to experienced crew with strong aircraft commander who can control his impulses. Staff Sergeant Michael Donovan arrived at Station 153, Framlingham, England, in March 1944, and was assigned to the 390th Bombardment Group Heavy, 568th Bombardment Squadron. His B-17, Aircraft 42 to 31,367, nicknamed Hell's Fury, already had a reputation. The bomber had completed 3 combat missions with 2 near-catastrophic encounters with German fighters. The previous tail gunner, Sergeant Edward Morrison, 25 years old from Pennsylvania, had survived but requested immediate transfer to another aircraft. Morrison's explanation to the crew chief was direct. That position's cursed. Every mission, we get hit from 6 o'clock. The next man in that turret dies there. When the crew chief mentioned that Hell's Fury needed a replacement tail gunner, Donovan volunteered immediately. The aircraft commander, Captain James Whitmore, 31 years old from Peoria, interviewed him personally. Standard procedure for tail gunner positions given their strategic importance and high casualty rates. You know the statistics? Whitmore asked. Tail gunners have 38% casualty rate. Donovan replied. Highest of any crew position. And you still want the job? That means I got 62% odds of finishing my tour. I'll take those odds. Why? Because I don't wait for them to shoot me, sir. I shoot first. Whitmore studied the young sergeant for several seconds, then nodded once. You're either insane or exactly what we need. Report to your crew chief for position familiarization. Donovan's first combat mission, Hell's Fury's fourth, launched on March 2, 1944. Target, ball bearing factories at Schweinfurt, Germany. The mission would test both the new tail gunner and the bomber's apparent curse. The 390th Bombardment Group launched 24 aircraft that morning. Hell's Fury flew in the low squadron, position 5, an exposed position vulnerable to fighter attacks, but necessary for formation integrity. German fighters intercepted the bomber stream 40 miles short of the target. 16 Bf-109s from Jag Eschwader 3 attacked from multiple vectors simultaneously. Donovan's first impression of actual combat was a noise. Training flights have been loud. For Wright, our 1820 engines producing 1,200 horsepower each created substantial sound. But combat added layers of auditory chaos. Machine gun fire from 9 defensive positions, cannon fire from attacking fighters, explosions when rounds found targets, the shriek of metal when bullets punctured aluminum skin. Through his gun sight, Donovan tracked a Bf-109 attacking from 6 o'clock high, directly astern and above, the classic fighter approach angle. Standard Doctrine called for waiting until the fighter committed to its attack run, then opening fire at 500 yards. Donovan opened fire at 1,200 yards. The burst was short, 20 rounds, and missed completely, but the effect was immediate. The attacking fighter broke off its approach, rolling left to avoid the unexpected defensive fire. Donovan traversed his guns to track the next target, another Bf-109 approaching from 6 o'clock level. He fired again at 1,000 yards. This burst found metal. Tracers walked across the fighter's left wing. The Bf-109 pulled up sharply, trailing white smoke that indicated coolant loss. A damaged fighter was as effective as a destroyed fighter. It couldn't continue attacking. Had to return to base, removed one aircraft from the enemy's available force. The engagement lasted 7 minutes. When the German fighters withdrew, Donovan had expended 740 rounds, nearly 40% of his 2,000-round ammunition load, and had one confirmed kill plus 2 damaged aircraft. But what caught attention throughout the bomber group wasn't the kill count. It was the method. Hell's Fury returned without significant battle damage. No casualties. No systems failures. The cursed bomber had survived its first mission with the new tail gunner without incident. That evening, other tail gunners sought out Donovan at the enlisted men's barracks. You were firing at extreme range, Sergeant Thomas Bailey, 22 years old from Ohio, said. Standard Doctrine says conserve ammunition. Standard Doctrine gets you a 38% casualty rate. Donovan replied, I'll take aggressive fire over conservative tactics any day. But you wasted ammunition. Most of your bursts missed. They missed the fighters. They didn't miss the objective. My objective isn't hitting the target. It's preventing the attack. If they break off before reaching firing position, I've won without needing to hit anything. The logic was sound, but violated everything the gunners had been taught. Defensive fire was supposed to be reactive. Wait for the enemy to commit, then respond with accurate fire. Donovan's approach was proactive. Force the enemy to react to you before they could execute their attack plan. The distinction seemed subtle. The implications would prove revolutionary. Before we continue with what happened on March 6, 1944, when Staff Sergeant Donovan faced 12 German fighters simultaneously, if you're fascinated by these stories of tactical innovation that changed military doctrine and the men who proved that aggression could be more effective than defense, subscribe and hit the notification bell. We publish deeply researched military history documentaries every week. Now, back to March 1944, and a mission that would change aerial combat forever. Donovan's second combat mission launched on March 4, 1944. Target, aircraft component factories at Augsburg. The mission profile was nearly identical to March 2nd, deep penetration into German airspace, heavy fighter opposition expected, long exposure time over defended territory. This time, Donovan experimented with tactical refinements. When Bf-109 began their attack run from 6 o'clock high, the standard approach angle, he didn't track the lead fighter as Doctrine prescribed. He targeted the Wingman, the second aircraft in the formation, the pilot flying predictable patterns to maintain formation discipline, the one not expecting return fire yet. Donovan fired a sustained burst, 60 rounds in 4 seconds, directly into the Wingman's flight path. The Bf-109 exploded in a ball of orange flame. Debris scattered across the sky. The lead fighter, suddenly alone, his Wingman destroyed before reaching attack position, broke off immediately. Without the coordinating element, the attack pattern collapsed. The remaining German fighters withdrew to regroup. "Did you see that?" The ball turret gunner's voice crackled over the intercom. He shot the Wingman first. The whole formation scattered. Captain Whitmore's response was measured. "Donovan, explain your targeting priority." "Lead fighters expect offensive fire, sir. They're prepared for it, flying evasive patterns. Wingmen are focused on formation keeping. They're vulnerable. Kill the Wingman." The lead loses his coordinating element. The whole formation becomes disorganized. "Where did you learn that tactic?" "Didn't learn it, sir. Figured it out." The mission continued without further fighter contact. Hell's Fury returned to Framlingham with minimal damage. That evening, Donovan's crew chief, Sergeant Frank Murphy, 34 years old from Michigan, counted ammunition expenditure. "You fired 1,600 rounds. Standard load is 2,000. You used 80% of your ammunition on one mission." "And we didn't get hit," Donovan replied. "I'll take that trade every day." Murphy shook his head but didn't argue. The numbers spoke clearly. Aggressive fire prevented damage more effectively than conservative ammunition management. But Donovan wasn't satisfied. He had prevented attacks. He had disrupted formations. But he hadn't maximized effectiveness. There had to be a way to create more impact with the same resources. That night, Donovan studied German fighter tactics manuals that intelligence officers had translated from captured documents. He analyzed how Luftwaffe fighters approached, where they positioned themselves, what they expected from American defensive fire. The pattern became clear. German fighters attacked in coordinated waves, typically 4 to 6 aircraft in echelon formation, approaching from stern quarter high. The lead fighter drew defensive fire. Wingmen exploited the gunner's focus on the primary threat. American defensive doctrine emphasized tracking the most immediate threat, the lead fighter, and engaging with controlled fire when targets entered optimal range. The flaw was obvious. American gunners reacted. German pilots dictated. The initiative belonged to the attacker. What if you reverse the equation? What if you attack first? What if you force the enemy to react to your actions instead of executing their planned attack? The concept violated everything taught at gunnery school. But Donovan had learned years earlier on West Broadway that defensive posture gets you hurt while offensive action keeps you breathing. Aerial combat, he realized, operated on the same principles as street fighting. The briefing from March 6, 1944, began at 4:30 hours in the operations building at Station 153. Intelligence Officer Captain Richard Stevens, 36 years old from New York, stood before a wall-mounted map of Germany with a target marked in red. Aircraft factories at Augsburg. Primary target is final assembly buildings. Secondary targets are machine shops and component fabrication facilities. He pointed to the route marked on the map. "We'll assemble over East Anglia, cross the channel at 10,000 feet, climb to operational altitude over France, enter German airspace here," he tapped Belgium, "and proceed to target. Total mission time approximately 9 hours. Then came the part every crew dreaded, fighter opposition estimates. Intelligence anticipates heavy German fighter response. We're hitting strategic targets deep in their territory. Expect multiple waves of Bf-109s and FW-190s. 800 B-17s will be in the air. Luftwaffe will throw everything they have at us." The room was silent. 800 bombers meant the 8th Air Force was committed to this target. It also meant German fighters would be concentrated, aggressive, numerous. Stevens continued. "We've lost an average of 14 bombers per 1,000 sorties over the past 3 months. Today's mission profile suggests similar or higher loss rates. Fighter escort will cover us until we're 50 miles from target, but you'll be on your own over the objective." After the intelligence briefing, Captain Whitmore gathered Hell's Fury's crew. This one's going to be rough. Stay sharp. Stay coordinated. Stay alive. Donovan raised his hand. Permission to try something different, sir. Explain. Aggressive fire. I want to engage fighters before they commit to attack runs. Force them to defend before they can attack. Whitmore frowned. That burns ammunition. You'll be dry before the real fight starts. Or I'll prevent the real fight, Donovan replied. Sir, we've been playing defense for 2 years. 38% tail gunner casualty rate. Maybe it's time we stop waiting to get shot. Several crew members nodded. The statistics were undeniable. Defensive tactics produce high casualties. Whitmore considered for 15 seconds, then made his decision. You've got one mission to prove it. If we get shredded, you're off the gun. Understood? Yes, sir. Good. Wheels up at 0647. Get your gear. Hell's Fury lifted off from runway 25 at station 153 at precisely 6:47 hours. The B. 17 weighed 65,500 pounds fully loaded. 35,000 pounds of aircraft. 6,000 pounds of fuel. 6,000 pounds of bombs. 18,500 pounds of crew, ammunition, equipment, and supplies. The bomber climbed slowly, fighting physics with 4 engines producing 4,800 combined horsepower. At 180 miles per hour indicated airspeed and 700 feet per minute climb rate. Reaching operational altitude of 23,000 feet would require approximately 33 minutes. The 390th Bombardment Group assembled over East Anglia, 24 aircraft forming into combat box formation. Hell's Fury took position in the low squadron, slot 5. At 8:24 hours, the formation crossed into German-controlled airspace. At 9:19 hours, exactly 1 hour and 32 minutes after takeoff, the call came. Fighters, 6 o'clock high, 12 bandits. Donovan swiveled his twin .50 caliber guns to scan the sky astern. 12 BF-109s at 2,000 yards, forming up for coordinated attack. Everything he had theorized, everything he had planned, came down to the next 4 minutes. Donovan opened fire at 2,000 yards, maximum range, minimal probability of hits. Standard gunnery doctrine considered this wasteful. Hitting targets at 2,000 yards required perfect lead calculation, zero aircraft vibration, ideal atmospheric conditions. In practice, accuracy at extreme range was less than 5%. But Donovan wasn't trying to hit targets. He was trying to disrupt the formation. The twin .50s hammered. Tracers arced across empty sky. Most rounds missed by hundreds of feet. The effect was immediate. The German formation scattered. The lead swarm broke right. Wingmen hesitated. The coordinated attack pattern, which required precise timing and positioning, disintegrated. Donovan, cease fire. Captain Whitmore's voice crackled over the intercom. You're wasting ammunition. Negative, sir. Watch what happens next. The German fighters regrouped at 1,500 yards. But now they approached cautiously, probing attacks rather than aggressive dives. Donovan tracked the new lead fighter. At 1,500 yards, he fired again, short control bursts, not aiming to hit, aiming to intimidate. The formation broke again. But one BF-109, the left wingman, maintained course. An experienced pilot, Donovan recognized immediately. This one wouldn't be intimidated. This one required different tactics. He let the fighter close. 1,400 yards, 1,300, 1,200. The range where most gunners open sustained fire. Donovan held. 1,100 yards, 1,000. Now the fighter filled his gun sight. Range was closing at 366 feet per second. The fighter would reach firing position in 16 seconds. Donovan fired. Not a burst. A sustained barrage. 200 rounds in 3 seconds. The concentration of fire was overwhelming. The BF-109 attempted to brake, but flew directly into the stream of tracers. The engine exploded. The canopy shattered. The aircraft disintegrated. Pieces tumbled earthward. Good kill, the radio operator's voice confirmed. Donovan just splashed one. But Donovan was already tracking the next target. The remaining 11 fighters had regrouped. Now they knew the tail position was dangerous. They would adjust tactics, attack from different angles, split his attention, overwhelmed through coordination. Donovan had anticipated this. The German fighters divided into 2 groups, 6 attacking from 6 o'clock, 5 from 7 o'clock. Standard counter to aggressive defense. Split the gunner's attention, force him to divide fire between multiple threats. Most tail gunners would attempt to engage both groups, short bursts at each, trying to cover all angles. Donovan did the opposite. He focused everything on the 6 o'clock group, ignored the 7 o'clock threat completely. "Waist gunner, you got 7 o'clock." Donovan called over the intercom. "I'm holding 6. Sergeants Tommy Price and Carl Johnson, the waist gunners, 24 and 23 years old from Iowa and Nebraska respectively, opened fire on the 7 o'clock group. Donovan concentrated on his sector. 6 fighters diving toward Hell's Fury's tail. He picked the lead aircraft. Fired. Direct hit. The fighter exploded. The remaining 5 broke formation momentarily. Donovan immediately shifted to the new lead fighter. Fired again. Another hit. Another explosion. In 30 seconds, 3 BF-109s fell from the sky. The remaining 9 fighters broke off completely, not repositioning for another attack, but full retreat, fleeing from a single tail gun position. Captain Whitmore's voice over the intercom was measured but contained astonishment. Donovan just splashed 3 in 30 seconds. Total if we're confirmed. The bomber formation continued toward Augsburg. Donovan reloaded, checked ammunition. 1,200 rounds expended. 800 remaining. Enough for 1 more sustained engagement or 2 brief ones. The question was whether the Germans would return. They did. 15 minutes later, radar operators reported new contacts. 18 fighters, a full staffel. They had seen what happened to the first group. They were prepared. They attacked from multiple vectors simultaneously. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Overwhelming firepower from every stern quarter. Standard response. Defensive fire, divide attention, try to cover all angles, survive through evasion and luck. Donovan chose violence. He ignored the 4 and 5 o'clock attackers, let the waist and ball gunners handle them. He focused everything on 6 o'clock, the direct stern attack. 6 BF-109s dove straight at Hell's Fury's tail. Donovan locked his guns on the lead fighter and opened fire at 1,200 yards, maximum effective range. Closing speed was 400 knots. That gave him exactly 7 seconds before the German reached firing position. Donovan used all 7 seconds. He walked tracers directly into the lead BF-109's flight path. The fighter couldn't evade without breaking attack formation. The pilot held course. Fatal mistake. At 800 yards, Donovan's rounds found metal. The canopy shattered. The aircraft rolled inverted and fell. 5 remaining. 400 yards between them and Hell's Fury. 3 seconds to impact. Donovan shifted to the next fighter. No time to track properly. Pure instinct. He fired where the target would be in 2 seconds, not where it was, where physics dictated it had to go. The second BF-109 flew directly into the stream of bullets. Engine cowling exploded. Orange fireball. Debris everywhere. 3 remaining fighters broke formation immediately, not repositioning. Fleeing. Jesus Christ. Whitmore's voice. Donovan just splashed 2 more in 3 seconds. But Donovan was reloading his last ammunition belt. 400 rounds remaining, and the mission was only half over. The bomber formation continued toward Augsburg. German fighters regrouped at distance. 12 aircraft remaining from the original 18. They had learned. Direct stern attacks cost too much. They needed different tactics. What came next surprised everyone aboard Hell's Fury. The German fighters didn't attack. They shadowed the bomb formation at just outside gun range. Waited. Captain Whitmore recognized the pattern immediately. They're calling reinforcements. We're about to get hit by everything they have. 10 minutes later, his prediction proved accurate. Radar operators reported new contacts. 36 fighters, a full Gruppe, 3 staff on the BF-109s and FW-190s. Combined with the 12 already shadowing, Hell's Fury faced 48 enemy fighters. Standard procedure. Call for fighter escort, tighten formation with nearby bombers, maximize overlapping defensive fire. But Hell's Fury had drifted from formation during earlier attacks. The nearest friendly bomber was 3 miles away. No P-51 escorts in range. They were alone. Donovan checked ammunition. 380 rounds against 48 fighters. The mathematics didn't work, unless he changed the equation. Captain. Donovan called over the intercom. Permission to try something. What? Attack. Silence on the intercom for 3 seconds. Then Whitmore's voice, carefully controlled. Explain. Those fighters are forming up for a coordinated assault. Give them 2 minutes, and they'll hit us from every angle simultaneously. We can't defend against that, but we can disrupt it. If I engage while they're still organizing, I can force them to scatter before they're ready. You'll be out of ammunition in 30 seconds. Then I better make them count, sir. Defensive tactics don't work when you're outnumbered 20-1. Our only chance is aggressive action while they're still vulnerable. Whitmore considered for 3 seconds. Do it. If you get us killed, I'm writing your family a very angry letter. The German formation was 2,000 yards out, still organizing. Lead elements establishing attack vectors. Trailing elements moving into support positions. Perfect vulnerability. Donovan opened fire. Not short control bursts. Not suppressive fire. Maximum sustained barrage. He poured 200 rounds into the formation center in 8 seconds. Not targeting specific aircraft. Targeting the space where coordination happened, where fighters maintained formation discipline. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Tracers crossed through the formation's core. One BF-109 caught fire and spiraled down. 2 others collided trying to evade, a mid-air collision that destroyed both aircraft instantly. The entire formation, 48 fighters, disintegrated into chaos. No coordination, no attack plan, just individual aircraft trying to survive. Holy! Whitmore didn't finish. Everyone aboard Hell's Fury saw it. One tail gunner with a suicidal attack run had just broken up the largest fighter assault any of them had witnessed. But Donovan knew the truth. He'd bought time. Maybe 2 minutes. The Germans would regroup. They'd be angry now. Aggressive. The next attack would come fast. And he had 180 rounds left. The German fighters regrouped in 90 seconds. This time, they didn't bother with coordinated tactics. They swarmed. 12 fighters dove from 6 o'clock simultaneously. No formation. No strategy. Just overwhelming violence. Donovan picked his targets carefully. Not the closest fighters. Not the most aggressive. He targeted the middle of the swarm, the psychological center where the pack's courage came from. He fired 30-round bursts into 3 consecutive aircraft. All 3 took hits. 1 exploded. 2 broke off trailing smoke. 9 fighters continued. 400 yards. Cannon fire lit the sky. 20 millimeters round streaked past Hell's Fury's tail section. Some connected. Metal shrieked. The aircraft shuddered. But Donovan kept firing. Target. Burst. Target. Burst. Mechanical precision. Another BF-109 fell. Then another. 5 remaining. 200 yards. Point-blank range. Donovan could see pilots' faces. Young men. Determined. Professional. He shot them anyway. 2 more fighters exploded. 3 left. 100 yards. The survivors broke off. Too close now. Risk of collision exceeded reward of kill. Donovan tracked 1 last fighter. Squeeze the trigger. Nothing. The guns were dry. He had expended all ammunition. 180 rounds in 45 seconds. 6 fighters destroyed in that engagement alone. But now he was defenseless. I'm out. Donovan called over the intercom. Dry on all guns. Captain Whitmore's response was immediate. Copy. Damage report. Anyone hit? Everyone was alive. All systems functional except the tail guns. Hell's Fury could still fly, could still fight, just without a primary defense against stern attacks. The German fighters knew it. They regrouped one final time. 27 aircraft remaining from the original 48. They had lost 21 fighters to a single bomber, to a single gun position. The loss rate was catastrophic, 44% casualties. But they had one advantage now. The tail position was neutralized. They attacked from directly astern. 6 o'clock low, the one vector Donovan's empty guns couldn't cover. Standard tactic, when you know the enemy is defenseless. They came in tight formation, slow, methodical. No wasted shots. This was execution. Donovan watched them approach through his gun sight. 400 yards. 300. 200. He had no ammunition. No way to defend. But he had one weapon remaining. Psychology. Donovan traversed his guns to track the lead fighter. Followed it precisely. Maintained perfect targeting discipline. As if his weapons were loaded, as if he could fire at any moment. The lead German pilot saw the twin .50 S tracking him. Saw the barrels aligned perfectly with his cockpit. He broke formation. Immediate hard right turn. Pure instinct overriding knowledge. The guns might be empty, but the threat reaction was hardwired. When someone aims at you, you evade. The rest of the formation followed their leader. They broke attack pattern. Not because Donovan could shoot them, because they believed he could. The The psychological impact of his previous kills created phantom threat. Empty guns became as effective as loaded ones through reputation alone. They're breaking off. The ball turret gunner's voice cracked with relief. They're actually breaking off. And they were. The German formation scattered, didn't regroup for another attempt. They had lost 21 aircraft to this single bomber. The cost was too high. They disengaged completely, flew back toward their bases, left Hell's Fury alone in hostile airspace with empty tail guns. The bomber formation continued to Augsburg. At 10:47 hours, they reached the initial point, the navigation checkpoint where bombardiers assumed control for the bomb run. Lieutenant Robert Chun, 25 years old from California, Hell's Fury's bombardier, called over the intercom. Pilot, bombardier, I have the aircraft. Roger, you have the aircraft, Whitmore confirmed. The bomb run required flying straight and level for approximately 6 minutes, while the bombardier used the northern bomb site to calculate release point. No evasive maneuvers. No deviation from course. The most vulnerable phase of any bombing mission. German anti-aircraft batteries opened fire at 10:49 hours. Flak bursts. 88mm shells detonating at predetermined altitudes peppered the sky with black explosions that left shrapnel clouds deadly to aircraft within 200 yards. Hell's Fury flew through the barrage. Shrapnel rattled against aluminum skin. Several pieces punched through the fuselage. Holes that would need patching, but didn't compromise structural integrity. At 10 hours, 52 minutes, and 37 seconds hours, Chin released the bombs. 12 500-pound high-explosive bombs dropped in train from Hell's Fury's bomb bay. Total weight, 6,000 pounds. The aircraft lurched upward, suddenly lighter. Whitmore immediately turned away from the target area, diving to gain speed and exit the flak zone. The formation reformed and turned west, heading home. Still 450 miles from England, still over hostile territory, still vulnerable to fighter attacks, but no fighters engaged. Hell's Fury encountered 3 more German formations during the return flight. 16 Bf-109s at 11:23 hours, 12 FW-190s at 12:47 hours, 8 Bf-109s at 13:52 hours. None attacked Hell's Fury specifically. They engaged other bombers in formation, but avoided the B-17 with the aggressive tail gunner. Word had spread through German radio communications. 1 bomber had destroyed 21 fighters. The warning was clear: avoid that aircraft. Too dangerous. Too costly. Hell's Fury touched down at Station 153 at 16:47 hours, 9 hours and 59 minutes after takeoff. Donovan climbed out his tail position. His hands were steady. No shakes. No visible stress. He had spent 4 hours in the tail turret, experienced 3 major fighter engagements, destroyed 12 aircraft, expended 2,000 rounds of ammunition. His electric flight suit had kept him warm at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. His oxygen mask had provided breathable air at 23,000 feet. His twin .50 caliber guns had functioned perfectly throughout the mission. The ground crew swarmed Hell's Fury, assessing damage. 47 bullet holes, 13 20mm cannon strikes, destroyed hydraulic line, cracked rudder control cable, minor structural damage to vertical stabilizer. But it flew. It survived. Sergeant Murphy examined the tail gun position, checked ammunition boxes. All empty. Every round expended. He found Donovan sitting on the tarmac, smoking a cigarette from his ration pack. You used everything, Murphy said. 2,000 rounds. You fired every bullet we loaded. Had to, Donovan replied. Didn't have enough to waste any. How many did you get? Murphy consulted his notes, counts from other crew members, radio intercepts from German communications, visual confirmations from P-51 escorts who had caught up near the target. 12 confirmed kills. 4 probables. 3 damaged. Captain Whitmore, standing nearby, looked at Donovan with an expression somewhere between respect and disbelief. You destroyed 12 fighters in one mission. 19 if you count probables and damaged, Murphy added. In 4 minutes of sustained combat. The number spread through the 390th Bombardment Group before sunset. By morning, every tail gunner at Station 153 wanted to know Donovan's tactics. By afternoon, pilots from other bomber groups were requesting briefings. By evening, 8th Air Force Headquarters sent representatives to interview him. Major General Frederick Anderson, commanding officer of 8 Bomber Command, arrived at Station 153 personally on March 7th. He found Donovan in enlisted men's barracks, cleaning his guns, standard maintenance, nothing special. Anderson introduced himself. Donovan stood at attention. At ease, Sergeant. I'm here to understand what you did yesterday. Donovan explained his philosophy systematically. Aggressive fire to disrupt enemy formations, psychological intimidation through early engagement, attacking during the enemy's coordination phase before they could execute plan attacks, focusing fire on formation centers rather than individual targets, accepting risk to create deterrence. Anderson listened without interruption. When Donovan finished, the general asked one question. Can you teach this? Not everyone, sir. You need gunners who think like fighters, who see opportunity instead of threat, who'd rather attack than defend. Find them, Anderson ordered. I'm authorizing a special training program. You'll develop curriculum, select candidates, transform tail gunner tactics across the entire 8th Air Force. Effective immediately, you're reassigned to training command. Donovan hesitated. Sir, I prefer to stay with my crew. Your crew doesn't need you anymore, Anderson said bluntly. They're alive because of what you did. Other crews are dying because their gunners don't know what you know. Which matters more, 9 men or 9,000? The answer was obvious. Donovan accepted the assignment. Between March and August 1944, Staff Sergeant Michael Donovan developed what became known throughout the 8th Air Force as the Donovan Doctrine, aggressive tail gunnery tactics that revolutionized offensive aerial combat. The core principles were simple but violated established doctrine. First principle, seize initiative. Don't wait for fighters to attack. Engage during their formation phase. Force them to respond to your actions instead of executing their plan. Second principle, psychological warfare. Your first burst doesn't need to destroy the target. It needs to intimidate the formation. Make them cautious, hesitant. Make them second-guess their approach. Third principle, focus fire. When outnumbered, don't divide attention. Concentrate all firepower on the most dangerous sector. Trust other gun positions to handle peripheral threats. Fourth principle, ammunition economy through aggression. 30 rounds forcing 12 fighters to scatter is more efficient than 300 rounds engaging scattered targets. Prevention costs less than reaction. Fifth principle, accept risk. Tail gunner casualty rates were 38% under defensive doctrine. Aggressive tactics increase exposure, but decrease mission losses. Individual risk versus collective survival. The mission mattered more than the man. The doctrine faced immediate resistance. Traditional gunners called it reckless. Command officers worried about ammunition waste. Conservative tactics instructors labeled it suicide. But the statistics didn't lie. In March 1944, before Donovan's tactics spread, tail gunner casualty rates in the 8th Air Force averaged 38%. By June 1944, after widespread adoption of aggressive fire doctrine, the rate dropped to 23%. Same missions, same enemy, different tactics. 15% reduction in casualties. Casualty reduction wasn't the only metric. Fighter engagement statistics told the real story. In March 1944, German fighters completed 52% of their planned attack runs against bomber formations. By June 1944, completion rate dropped to 27%. Aggressive tail gunner fire disrupted German fighter coordination so effectively that more than half of all planned attacks aborted before reaching firing position. The psychological impact extended beyond individual missions. German fighter pilots began avoiding bombers known to employ aggressive gunners. Radio intercepts captured Luftwaffe squadron, leaders warning pilots away from specific American formations. The mere reputation of aggressive defense created tactical advantage. Intelligence officers at 8 Bomber Command analyzed captured German communications throughout summer 1944. Multiple reports mention American tail gunner aggression. American defensive fire has become more aggressive. Tail gunners engage formations at extreme range with sustained fire. Effect is psychological disruption of attack coordination. Recommendation: avoid direct stern approaches. Utilize high-angle diving attacks from 11 or 1 o'clock positions. The recommendation proved difficult to implement. High-angle diving attacks require different training, different coordination, different risk assessment. Many German pilots couldn't adapt. Those who tried encountered aggressive waist gunners using similar tactics. The Donovan Doctrine had spread to every defensive position on American bombers. By August 1944, German fighter effectiveness against American bombers had declined by 63% compared to January 1944 levels. Multiple factors contributed. better fighter escorts, improved bomber formation tactics, strategic targeting of German oil production. But internal Luftwaffe analysis, captured after the war, attributed 28% of the decline specifically to American aggressive gunner tactics. Between March and August 1944, Donovan trained 300 tail gunners in aggressive gunnery tactics. The program emphasized mental preparation as much as technical skill. Donovan's favorite saying became doctrine throughout training command. Fear happens when you react. Confidence happens when you act first. But not every candidate succeeded. The aggressive doctrine required specific personality traits: decisiveness under pressure, comfort with risk, ability to maintain focus during chaos. Roughly 30% of candidates washed out, couldn't overcome defensive instincts, couldn't embrace necessary aggression, couldn't accept the risk calculus. Those who succeeded became legends in their own right. Sergeant Thomas Bailey destroyed 16 fighters in his first 4 missions using aggressive tactics. He survived 27 missions and returned to the United States in December 1944. Sergeant Robert Chin, no relation to Hell's Fury's bombardier, completed 35 missions without taking serious damage to his gun position, a survival rate that defied statistical probability. Sergeant James Rodriguez from Texas pioneered variations on the Donovan Doctrine, including coordinated fire with waist gunners to create overlapping fields of intimidation. By war's end, graduates of Donovan's training program accounted for 43% of all tail gunner kills in the European theater, despite representing only 18% of total tail gunners. The doctrine didn't just increase kills, it increased survival rates through deterrence. By summer 1944, Luftwaffe training manuals included sections specifically addressing American aggressive gunner tactics. Captured documents from Jag-Geschwader 27 included this tactical advisory. American tail gunners have adopted offensive engagement doctrine. Characteristics: opening fire at ranges exceeding 1,500 meters, sustained barrage instead of controlled bursts, traces directed at formation centers rather than individual aircraft. When these indicators observe, recommended response: disengage. Avoid stern approaches. Seek alternative attack vectors. Do not engage bombers with demonstrated aggressive defense. Cost exceeds tactical value. The recommendation was explicit: avoid aggressive American gunners. Find easier targets. The psychological battle had reversed. German fighters now feared American gunners instead of the reverse. But German adaptation came too late. By the time Luftwaffe doctrine acknowledged the threat, the 8th Air Force had integrated aggressive gunnery tactics across its entire bomber fleet. Every bomber group, every squadron, every aircraft. The defensive advantage had become systematic. After the war, military historians from multiple nations studied the Donovan Doctrine. The principle of aggressive defense became incorporated into Aerial Combat Doctrine 4. Soviet Union bomber crews, British Royal Air Force post-war, West German Luftwaffe, French Army, de LR, even Japan, in post-war analysis, acknowledged the effectiveness. The concept spread beyond bombers. Fighter escorts, ground attack aircraft, naval aviation. Wherever defensive positions existed, Donovan's principles applied. Conservative estimates, calculated by operational research analysts at Wright Field in 1946, credit the Donovan Doctrine with saving 300 American bombers and 3,000 aircrew between March 1944 and May 1945. The compound effect of preventing successful German attacks rippled through the entire strategic bombing campaign. Staff Sergeant Michael Donovan's personal combat career ended with the March 6, 1944 mission. He flew no additional combat sorties, spent the remainder of the war training others. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross on August 3, 1944, in a ceremony at 8 Bomber Command headquarters. The citation read, "For extraordinary heroism in connection with military operations against an armed enemy, while serving as tail gunner on AB-17 heavy bomber during a mission over Germany on March 6, 1944. Sergeant Donovan engaged 12 enemy fighters with aggressive and sustained fire, destroying 12 aircraft and disrupting coordinated attacks against his bomber formation. His action prevented catastrophic losses and established tactical doctrine that saved thousands of American lives. Sergeant Donovan's courage, skill, and tactical innovation reflect the highest traditions of military service." After the war, Donovan returned to Boston, worked construction, married Catherine O'Brien in 1947, raised 3 children. He never talked about the war. When journalists tracked him down in the 1960s requesting interviews, he declined. "I did what needed doing. So did 300 other gunners. They're the real story." He died in 1998 at age 76. The Boston Globe obituary was brief. 2 paragraphs mentioning his Distinguished Service Cross, his 16 years in construction, his wife, and 3 children. 1 sentence mentioned, developed new tactics for aerial gunners during World War II. The obituary didn't mention 12 kills in 4 minutes. Didn't mention 300 gunners trained. Didn't mention 3,000 lives saved. Didn't mention how 1 South Boston Street fighter changed aerial combat doctrine for every nation that studied his methods. The Donovan Doctrine remains standard doctrine in modern aerial combat training. The principles of aggressive engagement, psychological intimidation, and early disruption of enemy coordination are taught at United States Air Force Weapons School, Navy Fighter Weapons School, TOPGUN, Royal Air Force Tactical Leadership Program, Luftwaffe Tactical Training Center. Modern fighter pilots learn. When the enemy expects you to defend, attacking often produces better tactical outcomes. The concept has been adapted for surface-to-air missile doctrine. Engage incoming aircraft at maximum range to disrupt coordination. Naval anti-aircraft tactics. Aggressive early warning fire to scatter attacking formations. Ground-based air defense. Psychological deterrence through sustained engagement. March 6, 1944, lasted 4 minutes. 1 tail gunner. 12 enemy fighters. The moment when defense became offense. When reaction became action. When one 23-year-old from South Boston proved that survival doesn't come from waiting. It comes from making your enemy too scared to fight. Staff Sergeant Michael Joseph Donovan. Combat missions. 3 confirmed kills. 12, all on March 6, 1944. Probable kills. For aircraft damage. 3 total ammunition expended. 4,340 rounds across 3 missions gunners trained. 300 estimated bombers saved through doctrine adoption. 300 estimated aircrew saved. 3,000. He fired 2,000 rounds on March 6, 1944. Destroyed 12 aircraft. Changed warfare forever. Not because he was special. Because he refused to wait for death to come find him. He went hunting first.